I would expect that Luminato will become not only a world-class event, but a world first-class event.
I hope so too.
And I used to be in the broadcasting field, and at least my question, which is, are there any plans, and you don't have to reveal any trade secrets or anything, to take this to the rest of the world digitally and live? You know, I know that there's a lot of planning now going on just about performance and the lineup and all that sort of business, but you know, thinking further ahead to promote it as a world first.
We are undergoing a strategic planning process right now, which is a very enjoyable process, and we're definitely. I mean, these are things that we are sort of, you know, definitely thinking about. You know, how feasible is it to do something like that, et cetera, et cetera. And it is a very interesting idea. I mean, one of the ideas, sort of, maybe more the reverse idea that you're describing, that I had for the festival, and don't nail me down if we're not doing it this year, because things take time to develop. But one thing that I would actually love to do is to almost create within the festival a festival of festivals, and where you could sort of partner with different great festivals around the world, and you would film their productions in 3D and bring that sort of to, you know, Toronto. Rather than inviting the whole crew, you just bring the film. And 3D and theater or performance or live performance is actually so powerful. I've seen, when I was working with Wilson, I convinced NHK to film a production of his, and they could sort of use it, you know, as they could make a 5-minute clip for their sort of for their sort of, you know, shows where they were going around to, you know, advertise their technology. And it really is all of a sudden sort of theater on screen and performance on screen sort of totally makes sense. So rather than sort of, you know, that could be sort of for me a really progressive and new way of thinking about this presenting model, because you could basically bring the world to, and the best of the world to Toronto without, in a very different and very sort of contemporary kind of way, without hopefully spending you know, the money that you would need on airfare and thinking about the environment too, I guess, you know, because I mean there are implications to shipping sets overseas and having all that exchange and artists traveling, etc., etc.
As the British would say, jolly good.
Questions? More? Yes.
Well, maybe the CBC can help us with that.
Hi. Oh, I'm sorry. This was one of my questions over there, but also I think it's a great idea about the festivals, of all the festivals sort of worldwide. And I have 2 questions for you. Sorry. So I had 3 questions at the beginning. My first one is, what are your changes? Because you're a new artistic director of Luminato. So what are your changes like before and now? What's going to be new with you? What are you going? I mean, you're the person who is going to bring something new, but what are your great changes for this festival this year?
Well, for this, I mean, this festival, sort of a really large part of the program has been planned already, and I'm not sort of going in and say like, no, we gotta, you know, this is bullshit and this is terrible, because we actually have a really great program and sort of a lot of the sort of, you know, really signature pieces that have been planned, like, and I'm not saying something that hasn't been announced yet, is Robert Lepage is doing a new piece called Playing Cards. It's sort of the first part of a 4-part sort of monumental production, and that has its North American premiere at the Luminato Festival. So one of, you know, Canada's really great and greatest masters in his field. We've co-commissioned, or I'm saying we, because see, I already feel so connected to that, or my predecessor and before I came, they've co-commissioned the Batsheva Dance Company, an amazing contemporary dance company in Tel Aviv, for a new evening length sort of contemporary ballet or dance piece that's coming here. So a lot of the bigger sort of blocks of the festival have already been planned. I've sort of, I guess, sort of colored the mortar a little bit and sort of, you know, tried to glue these together. One of the maybe sort of main or one of the most noticeable changes is going to be that the Luminato Festival has always had this idea of the hub, which is sort of like really the heart, the pulsing heart of the festival. And we've tried, or I've tried to really condense more and more programming into the hub that goes and that then sort of also maybe points to other parts of the programming in different venues around time. And also try to mix up or bring different aspects of the programming and from different disciplines of the programming closer even in geographical, you know, proximity. We're, for example, doing, you know, so you might sort of come out of a film at TIFF and immediately sort of stumble upon a magic show that is happening at TIFF. So that it's not, so that the different aspects of the programming are sort of more in close contact, and that you have these sort of more accidental encounters with different art forms, and might just be, you know, enticed to stay and to sort of look. And this idea of transformation of the hub is something that we've taken up, and we're working with one of the greatest architectural firms of our times to really re-envision this idea of this forum or this agora or piazza, you know, where people come together, where they experience art, and hopefully create, you know, transform also the way they look at the square and will ever since. I can't say yet who it is or what it looks like, but I think it's actually going to be quite special. So that was sort of one of the bigger imprints that I could still leave with the festival for this year.
Thank you.
Okay.
And how do you find all your worldwide artists? Like, are you working with your team? It's huge.
Well, yes, I have a team of programmers, and I'm very grateful that the festival immediately said, you know, we're going to hire another person, we're going to sort of, you know, beef up the programming of the curatorial department. So we're actually going to announce for that position very, very soon. So, you know, and you have your network of people that you constantly talk to, and everything is getting so easy with email and the internet, and sort of, it's almost getting too easy. I have my wonderful and lovely assistant has put a box together for me of stuff to take home, and it's about 50 different proposals that I have to look at over the weekend at some point. So,
good. Another question? Or we have time for perhaps one or two more.
I've always been, you know, I've always really enjoyed working with the visual arts and contemporary art, I've worked in the opera, and opera has sort of been my passion, but I've always sort of almost shied away from having too many friends within the opera world. So I almost had much more friends sort of within the visual arts and journalists and critics, because I always felt that if you're too much living in your sort of department and in your institution, you sort of lose the bigger picture. And one of the things that I did, you know, in Berlin at the Opera House was that I brought a lot of visual artists into the opera, and actually sort of made them understand and love the richness of this institution where they might not have actually been ever before. I also, the Opera House where I worked was the first freestanding, so not connected to the court, opera house in the world. It was built by Frederick the Great, and we had this beautiful sort of ornate ballroom, and when I saw it, I said, you know, we should do clubs here, and we should bring sort of the best electronic or pop musicians or whatever to give music, just like we do great classical chamber music in that space. And then everyone sort of was against it, except for my artistic director, because he liked sort of those kind of ideas. And then we sort of slowly convinced people. And you weren't allowed to smoke in the opera house, because basically if something would catch fire, our iron curtain actually didn't close properly. And so the whole house, the whole building would burn down. And I said, but we can't do a club without people smoking. This was still in the days where basically, beer and cigarettes, go together in Germany, and I guess they still do, but there's a lot of non-smoking restaurants and clubs now as well. So we went to the building department and we said, we really want to do this, but we have to smoke, and it would only be like once or twice a month and blah blah, whatever. And I convinced them to let us do that. So that's sort of where I brought in also a lot of different artists into that institution.
Okay. I saw there was another hand up back there. Yeah.
I'd be interested in your views of the role of the theater critic in society. I mean, to what extent are you affected by or influenced by the theater critic?
I think anyone who works in that business and who reads reviews, and I do, and says they're not affected by it is a liar. Of course one is. I think, though, that the relationship of the public to the critic, and especially also through the internet, has changed quite a bit, I think, because there's a lot more sources sort of to get your information about a particular piece. There's people who write blogs. There's, a lot more online sort of, you can get your opinion out into the world in these days much more than you used to. And I think, you pick sort of, you pick some people whose opinion you really treasure. And I think very often, I've always liked also sometimes to have, dinner or lunch, like Richard and I are going to have dinner tonight, to sort of, talk with the critic, because they do see a lot, and they are sort of, they are, they can be sort of a machine that detects what's going on in the city, and to just get sort of their point of view on, their outsider point of view on what is happening with the cultural institution. I think you have to take them with a grain of salt and with a lot of humor.
Agreed, totally.
I think most of them would agree.
Oh, totally.
The good ones would agree, for sure.
It's ultimately one person's opinion. How powerful that opinion is another issue, but it is just one person's opinion.
It is an interesting, it really is an interesting concept, though. Do you feel, Richard, that with the internet, that there is sort of the influence and the responsibility, or the influence of the critic is changing?
Well, I have to be honest, I'm not saying it to be protecting my job, but it really doesn't matter that much, all the new stuff that's happening. There are on any given day 35 bloggers or people who call themselves critics who write things about the theater. A couple of them are very well informed and write very well. None of them, if you put all of their aggregate figures together, form 10% of my readership every day, still. And it's a place where people can express their opinion, and that's a good thing. And people who can read it can say that's a good thing as well. But it generally tends to be, this is the problem, preaching to the converted. You have to go look for these blogs and look for these reviews. Whereas if you are leafing through your Toronto Star or your Globe and Mail, they hit you in the face and you read them. And we like to think that we can bring the people who don't normally go, to the theater. And that's the difference, I think. But it's still, no one is casually going to skim through, the XYZ theater blog. That there's just too much on the net.
What's interesting, I heard a talk of the chief editor of the New York Times, Sulzberger, or the publisher or whatever, and he said that he believes that in 2017 or whatever, there's not going to be a print edition of the New York Times anymore. So they're sort of getting ready to really shift everything online. which is kind
Well,
of...
the thing is, that doesn't mean not writing. I mean, I am maniacal to make sure everything I write gets online.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
in fact, in the new era, I'm now under deadlines where I often have less than a half hour to write because they want it online.
They want it online immediately. Yeah.
I mean, you can literally you can be reading one night. A couple of weeks ago, I saw a show, went to McDonald's to write the review, the wireless, got on the streetcar to go home.
So it was a fast food review. It was
yeah, fast food review. I was on the streetcar going home when I got an email from the producer of the show thanking me for the review. It was online before I was even home. So I believe the internet as a presence and an extension of newspapers is extraordinarily valuable. But you build up the readership and the reputation and everything from the fact that you did come from the print mother, as it were.
Yeah.
You know.
Which one? You have to check it on the internet.
Yeah. No, it is. And as I said, our paper and our management are very maniacal about making sure we're online first, more thorough. We can often run longer versions of articles online because no paper to spend money on, or no editing rules or things like that. Or sometimes, as happens in Toronto, 6 productions of various theaters and operas and things can open in one night. There's no room for all of them in the paper, or not enough people to cover them all in one night. We often can put in the newspaper, please go online to see this here. Because it happens that way. Sometimes, you know, there's just too much. The Times does that too now. One more thing. Yeah, we have one more. Okay.
How would you define success, or what will success look like for you?
If I'm still sitting here on this chair again in 5 years, and you're going to come again. You know, I think it is also such a mixture of different components. You know, I mean, it does have something to do with audience and what the numbers are, for sure. I think, you know, I mean, one of my, you know, I personally really, it pains me if a piece that I'm producing or putting on is not selling out. You know, I hate empty seats in theater. I really hate it. So I try to find ways of, you know, community, and I'm very passionate about, you know, things that I'm sort of working on or whatever. So I'm really trying to think about any kind of way. Where's the audience? How can we get to, you know, the right kind of audience? And the whole team of Luminato is actually so wonderful, and they're sort of always thinking as well, and what are the different directions that we're coming. The great thing about this festival too is that it's so young, you know, and that you don't come in there and they say like, well, this is how we've done like 30 years ago, so we can't really change this anymore, you know, which is actually a little bit what I had at the Opera House in Berlin. It wasn't like this is how we did it 30 years ago, but this is how we did it 350 years ago. So, you know, that is definitely an effect. I think sort of also how, you know, the festival invigorates sort of the local art scene. I think also what great artists it attracts, you know, from internationally. How do they collaborate with artists from Canada, from Toronto? What percentage of the productions from Luminato sort of continue going on into, you know, travel around the world, travel around Canada or whatever? To me, the definition of a great sort of culture of a nation is not only necessarily what are the great artists that a country sort of produces, but also what are the great artists that a country attracts to live and work where you are. And I think it has to be sort of this balance. And I think hopefully you're going to tell me if I was successful or not.
And then the last thing, the last unpaid commercial. when the time comes to buy tickets, please go to see Einstein on the Beach.
Thank you.
I cannot guarantee you will love every second of it, but I will guarantee that you'll hate yourself if you don't go. It's an important piece of theater, opera, whatever you want to call it, and I think you're never going to see It's Like again.
No.
So best go see it now while it's here. I think that's it. Thank you. Jorn, thank you for being
thank
so
you.
cooperative and open. Thank you.